Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the week that was on Deadline Detroit. I'm Craig Fahle. Very glad to have you with us for yet another bizarre week in America. And frankly, for that matter, joining me as usual, we have, of course, Alan Lengel, the editor and co-founder of Deadline Detroit. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be
Nancy.
Good to still be alive.
Yeah, very much so. Nancy Derringer is with us as well. And I love the artwork behind you, Nancy. Tell me a little bit more.
This is a piece from my daughter's first grade collection.
And you still have
She's now 23. I don't know. I just liked it. And I told her it's better than what it's covering, which is a target from when my husband took me shooting. And I did extremely well. I don't want to like bum out the the nonviolent people in the crowd. So
understood.
Up there.
And we also have with us special guest Greg Bowens is here today. You, of course, have seen his work on Deadline Detroit recently, including an interview with Governor Whitmer just the other day. Greg, glad to have you back, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It's all about
absolutely
love.
Virtually. Oh, very nice. Very nice. Yeah, so we are virtually meeting once again for this segment. I'm not sure how much longer we're going to have to do that, but I'm starting to get used to this kind of stuff. You know, it's nice to see everybody on video, but hey, maybe we just won't go back to the office at all. What do you think about that idea?
Hey, it's possible.
You know how much I'm saving on parking downtown? This is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And snacks. I only have to walk a few steps for.
Yeah, I know. Well, you never had to walk that far to get your snacks before.
True.
My problem is coming back to work is, I'm a big believer in public transit, particularly in the summertime, but I don't know what it's going to take to get me on a D-Dot bus again. So,
right.
Or a smart bus or any bus.
I agree. The Q line is right in front of my place. Q line, the bus stop. And it's going to be a while before I get on board.
There without full PPE. So
yes.
Well, that despite this rush towards reopening that we are seeing happening across the country in a number of different locations, we've got a number of states who say it's time to get back to business. We've got some rifts that are emerging in our own state about when to do that between, of course, the Chamber of Commerce, the Michigan Chamber, the governor's office, and, of course, the Republican-led legislature. I don't care when they say we're going to reopen. I don't think it's going to matter if people don't want to do anything. Right. And, I'm expecting a whole bunch of lawsuits about worker safety and everything else. Bosses ordering people to come back to work or else lose your job. If you don't feel safe, this is going to be the legal niche market for the next 5-6 years, I have a feeling.
Well, I think, it's interesting. I was going to say, it's interesting, the political pressure being put on the governors, and I think the governors are really feeling it. And Trump really has never believed in doing a step-by-step sort of phasing in. So he loves it, the idea that don't worry about the testing. I mean, there was an idea, the death rate, the number of hospitalizations had to go down. We had to do testing. And Trump is like, screw it. The election is coming. He goes, we saw the unemployment rate today. What was it? 17%?
14%. But
was it 14?
Well, it depends on which population you're part of, but yes.
Right. It's a debatable, I think I heard Greg say 20. And I think the truth is probably somewhere in between and probably closer to Greg's figure, because they're not counting people who are furloughed and are expected to be called back. They're no longer counted as unemployed. But the people who are just absolutely stone out of work are the 14%. It's probably.
Either way it goes, they're saying that this is the greatest number of people since the Depression. Right?
Sure.
So, it's unbelievable that we're going through this after only a month and a half? our
2
economy tanks
months.
like this? 2 months. 2 months.
Well, when you take all the people, what is an economy? It's a bunch of people going to work, and when you take everybody out of it, I mean, that's what's going to happen. So, I mean,
I think it's going to get better than what it is.
I
I mean,
hope
this is
it
just a
better.
total. This is
Yeah,
part of a total shutdown. Yeah, a total shutdown. So I think it's gonna. I mean, we had during the Great Recession, I think it was about a little over 11%, which was then considered extremely high. But on the other hand, it's probably going to go up before, like you say. I mean, who knows how many people? Some people can't even get through to the unemployment offices around the whole country. So there's probably a whole load of other people who are not even being counted as, and who are totally out of a job. Not even
Well, Florida is a great example of that. I mean, as we discussed on this program probably about a month and a half ago now, the governor at the time, Mr. Scott, who is now, of course, a senator from Florida, purposely made it difficult to apply for unemployment insurance in an effort to artificially keep the numbers down. And when you look at how many tourist jobs there are in Florida and how many people are out of work because places like Disney and Universal and all the restaurants and tiki bars and everything else are closed down there, those numbers are huge in that state. And people have been complaining that they can't even get through and that they get hung up on when they do wait on hold for 2.5 hours. And they finally, somebody picks it up and just hangs up the phone, and they have to start the process all over again. Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, even admitted what the motivation was for doing this in that state. So they are purposely trying to make it difficult for people to apply. And I'm sorry, that seems to be the kind of thing that voters will remember come November.
Von der Darien, when he was on this show, and I think this was months and months ago, said, why is the unemployment system in Michigan, it's not just Florida, it's Michigan too, is kind of set up to inflict pain on the applicant at every stage of the process, so that you end up with people who just say, screw it, I'm not doing this, I'll move back in with my parents or whatever. They just don't have the they either don't have the tech savvy, or they don't have the patience, or they don't have the time to go through the whole thing. So I mean, you'll never convince me this is just a Florida problem. I mean, and then we have the whole unemployment fraud issue that happened under the Snyder administration, where every error in your application was considered evidence of fraud, and they went after people, guns blazing. I mean, all of this is like you said, it's aimed at the same goal, which is to keep unemployment numbers down. So,
well, and I want to say one of the things that really bothers me too about this whole situation is the nerve of some of these politicians saying, well, we've made unemployment too attractive, so people aren't going to go back to work because they're making too much money. And I'm thinking to myself, all of these people would still be working if not for this coronavirus and the fact that we have these restrictions put in place for good reason. It's not as if people are just going to be walking away from their jobs and not going back to work. It's an insult to those people at the lower end of the economic ladder, because just assuming that for some reason they don't want to be a part of the economy, they don't want to be working. And it's the old welfare queen stuff time and time again from the same people that have been peddling this bullshit for the last 35 years.
And people are dealing. Greg, you haven't had a chance to talk. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that when we hear Craig, Nancy, and Al people peddle those kinds of things, who are supposedly in these positions of great responsibility, what we tend to find is that they are completely out of touch with reality, and the arguments that we keep having as it relates to the coronavirus and opening up faster than maybe we need to, is this whole thing about a cost benefit relationship. I mean, people are actually having discussions about the longer you stay out, then there's supposed to be some correlation between an increase in the number of suicides and depression and things of this nature. And so I find it, I guess, not that much of a stretch, since they can be so coldly calculating as it relates to how many lives we're going to sacrifice so that people can go to Wendy's or pick your restaurant,
Right.
And the folks that are making this argument, to me, is the same kind of thing we saw with the Flint water crisis. Save a few bucks, switch from Detroit, and we got our own water system, or when it comes to roads and the inability to create sustainable roads over the long term, or even when it comes to things that we've seen in the past with like tires. Remember the tires that were, I think it was Firestone, the tires that were defective, and it turned out that the company knew how many tires were going to be defective and how much it was going to probably cost them. The same thing with the whole key ring thing and the cars. I mean, how many times have we seen this code calculation, man?
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing about people being unemployed, to be a little more specific to this, I mean, a lot of these people, it's like, oh my gosh, they're getting paid more to sit at home on their butts than to come back to work. It's like, okay, sitting at home on their butts, they're also probably homeschooling their children and have no real alternatives for childcare because the childcare centers are closed too. They may well be dealing with, this illness in their family. And 9 times out of 10, they're being asked to risk their own health by going back to work. So I don't really blame anybody who decides to collect that somewhat beefier unemployment check for just a little while longer. And what is it supposed to last till June or July?
Well, no, that was the stimulus. That was the stimulus. That was supposed to last 10 weeks, the $1,200.
Right. Okay.
Well,
but
wait a minute.
No, that's the stimulus.
No. There's a $600. It's supposed to last through the end of July.
The sweetened
The sweetened deal is through the end of July.
Yeah.
And,
because unemployment is usually just a fraction of what you normally make.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
It's, for people who are making, I know people who've done it who basically qualify for like $225 a week. Right. And then they get the additional as a result of this. But either way, I mean, it's exposing a serious flaw in the system. And again, we have philosophical, political debates during a crisis when people actually need concrete help. This brings me to this. The other discussion that we're having right now is what the next round of stimulus is going to look like. And I heard Larry Kudlow the other day talk, as special economic advisor, of course, to the president, suggesting that another round of stimulus payments to individuals might not be part of the package, but they definitely want to push through a capital gains tax cut. And I'm thinking to myself, at what point do they give up on this notion that somehow giving rich people more money is going to somehow empower the rest of us? Because it is yet to work.
The lack of trickle, the silly trickle down theory is just totally BS.
They're never going to give it up. And, I don't want to make this a clumsy segue, but I mean, if there was ever a veil that was across the Trump administration about them being about, for all of us, that is simply gone now. I mean, with the Michael Flynn.
We were going to get to that in a minute.
Yeah. Okay. With the thing that happened yesterday, it's like, now we know the Department of Justice, the United States Department of Justice, where generations of public servants have gone and taken the oath and, and served with great honor, is now a fully functioning wing of the Trump administration. And I just,
independence.
No matter how cynical I am, I can't keep up. So.
You know what I think is interesting? The whistleblower, the guy who was ahead of the vaccine program, who was shoved aside and who really came out.
Dr. Bright, I believe.
Bright. Yeah, how could you forget? Any other president, this would have been a scandal that would go on and on and on. But you know what? I think it's really got to the point. It does not matter. There is nothing that sticks to Trump because nobody really cares, because it's just collectively there is so much there that it's numbing, and people just, nothing sticks anymore. I mean, the fact that he has, on top of the fact that he has, hold on, Nancy, that he has his children and his in-law, Jared Kushner running, a farcical, trying to help, acquire equipment and stuff like that, and failing at it. I mean,
he could put his beer buddies in charge of getting this stuff.
Wengel, you are letting people off the hook in this one. You say it's numbing and nobody cares. Lots of people care. Millions of people care.
True.
The problem is that Mitch McConnell and the rest of the Congress and the rest of the Senate and pretty much the entire Republican Party, they're the ones who don't care.
Well, but
the media doesn't even carry it through anymore, because the media can't. Because the public interest is like, what? Oh my God, you're telling me Trump lied? Trump did something crooked? Trump did something political that, that trumped
You have
people's
a
lives.
fraction of the staffs that you once had in media outlets. And the problem is it's like Lucy in the chocolate factory. There's always another one coming down the conveyor belt. You
Well,
just don't have time.
But hold on a second, because Greg, you've been involved in political campaigns for a lot of your career. I mean, yeah, this stuff may not stick to Trump, but here's one of the things I'm starting to notice. If you look at polling data, a lot of this stuff certainly seems to be sticking to the people that have been sycophantic to Trump, the people that have followed him at every turn. You look at a lot of these Senate races and where the numbers are right now, it's not looking good for incumbent Republicans who've basically followed this jackass down the rabbit hole. I think there could be some reckoning for a lot of these people.
Do you think McConnell and Lindsey Graham can be beat?
Wait, hold on a second. Let's let Greg respond here.
Well, the last election was called a blue wave. I think we're headed for a blue tsunami, just for the reasons that you mentioned. And part of it's got to be this fatigue that Alan Lingo was talking about. It's like, oh my God, another thing. I don't even care about the particulars anymore, is what I'm hearing voters saying. Let's just get these guys out of there. You know what I mean? So making an argument, and John James, the guy that's running against Gary Peters, is having a really difficult time getting traction. Part of it is because of the coronavirus, right? It's hard to get out there and have rallies and all that stuff. But the other part of it is just that we are so besieged by this negative news coming out of the White House, right? One bad thing after another, that you can't even see yourself clear to find a decent Republican out there that you want to vote for.
Greg?
That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah. Greg, did you read John James's op-ed in the Detroit News a couple of days ago?
I did not read that. Please, I just saw, I got some email. Well, it must have got my name from Alan Lingo, because I keep getting these Republican emails now. And
I would have to pull it up and go through it, and it wouldn't be very entertaining zooming. But I have never read so many words that essentially said nothing other than, hey, did I mention that I flew helicopters in Iraq?
Yeah,
in my life. I mean, that's
San Dimas High School football rules.
That's pretty much his whole campaign right now. Is
I was in the Army.
I was in the Army. Yeah, exactly.
No, that's true.
Speaking of that, emails, I have gotten probably in the last week 6 texts from Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Nice.
and just
she wants to start it up with you, Lynn.
And one this morning.
You guys are dating now.
Yeah, one, and right. I'm going to have to get a protection order. She wrote, the last one says, a text that says, final offer. Your Trump Life membership still hasn't been accepted. The invitation expires at midnight. President Trump calling on you to donate now.
Well,
I wrote her in a little bit ago and said, Sarah.
Well, what's funny about those is that they are vaguely threatening. You've been posting a lot of those letters you've been getting from President Trump's people, and they're like, I can't believe you've donated $0. How dare you donate $0, as if you're somehow, you're going to be the reason that they lose. And it's, there you go. Looks good.
I've donated what the candidate is worth.
Well, but you take a look at this, and as I said, some of the stuff's going to stick to these people that have followed Trump, deep into the swamp here. And one of the things you notice too, a lot of the people who are really in danger right now are some of the people who have done dumber things. Martha McSally comes to mind out in Arizona. She's right now getting her butt handed to her by Mark Kelly. That's going to be one of those that flips.
Is she the one with the long blonde hair?
Oh yeah,
That sold a bunch of stock.
No, that's Kelly Loeffler.
Oh, Kelly Loeffler. Okay.
Yeah, and she's
this is another one with long blonde hair. Okay.
I don't think she has blonde hair, does she?
So I can see that there could be some fallout from this, because the people are not stupid. They're watching the way that the president is handling this situation. They watch him deflecting blame, suggesting that the states are on their own and that they have no responsibility. They see him saying that this is 15 people and it'll be down to 0 soon. And now we're at 70,000 deaths in this country with no real end in sight anytime soon. Even the president suggesting that we're going to get over 100,000 in the next couple of weeks. This has not been handled well at the top, and it could have made a huge difference. I think there's a lot of people that are going to pay a price for this, including the president. I'm not going to suggest he's done for at this point in time, because that 39% that seems to go with him everywhere seems to be about as solid as can possibly be. But, you know, you look at armed people in the capitals complaining about this kind of stuff. There's a whole lot of people out there that are starting to recognize the crazy.
You know, it's interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
The Confederate flag thing, I've had some debates on Facebook about that. And, you know, I mean, I know. But,
what's the debate?
Why do you bother?
but to me, you know, I mean, it's interesting that these people are complaining about their freedoms being, you know, imposed upon, while the Confederate flag, what greater symbol of taking away people's freedom?
Tyranny.
Slavery. You know.
Well, and, okay, today is the 75th anniversary of VE Day. And I think it's an important day in that we need to remember what it was we were fighting against. So when we have people coming onto the state capitol, holding flags, comparing Whitmer to the Nazis and things like that, we have forgotten the atrocities of the Nazis if we're allowing this to happen. And you know, VE Day seems like a particularly good reason to remind people just what it was that we were fighting against: fascism, oppression, real tyranny in the government, and especially amongst the people in Europe and the system.
Can I make one quick point? Oh, go ahead,
yes.
Greg.
Well, I was just going to say, as a veteran, I find all of that particularly offensive. You know, waving the flags of our enemies at our state capitol is, to me, a betrayal of American values, not a reinforcement of American values. And whether it's waving the Nazi flag that we defeated in World War II, or waving the Confederate flag, the flag of traitors to the Republic, to me, it suggests that they are not truly trying to uphold the values that keep America together. Sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to point out something funny that I read in Brian Dickerson's column, which I think is probably gonna run on Sunday, but I don't know. But I saw it online from the Free Press, and we were talking about the guns in the Capitol. And that was a very disturbing image that went around the world. Those guys standing in the gallery with their gigantic weapons. And there was some talk afterward that, you know, maybe it's time to like stop allowing people to bring loaded weapons into the state legislature, into the Capitol. And it was, I believe it was John Truscott, who was at one time John Engler's press secretary. And he said on Monday of I think this was this Monday, it might have been last Monday, but anyway, he said, "We do not like seeing guns brought into the building, loaded guns, and I'm a Second Amendment advocate. Everyone is disturbed, including me, about what we saw last week. 99.9% of the people in Michigan do the right thing, and it just takes a couple to upset it for everyone else, and that's what happened here." Now, he sits on the Michigan Capitol Commission, which actually sets the rules for, you know, for behavior in the Capitol. Okay, that was Monday. But by Tuesday, Truscott was backing off, telling MERS the matter was outside the commission's jurisdiction and that any ban on firearms is really something that will need to be done by the legislature. And we all know that the legislature isn't going to do jack about guns.
No.
So, I mean, that just goes to show you how viciously some people will enforce the, you know, the bedrock. And I mean, they're not going to, you talk about how it's a big tent. It's not even big enough for one guy in Michigan to say it's not a good idea to allow guns in the Capitol.
Well,
let me make this really important point. Okay. They are not enforcing the current law. You cannot take a gun into a movie theater because it exceeds the capacity of the number of people that are there. So, you know, that gallery, that state legislature, I'm sure exceeds the capacity that you have for being able to carry a gun into someplace. You know, you can't take a gun into a stadium, for example. You can't take a gun into, I forget the number, I think it's 500 or something like that. That any facility that holds that many people, you're not supposed to be able to carry a weapon. And
really
so,
dumb.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, it's, you know, the idea that the state troopers would stand aside and let people walk into an area where they're not supposed to be able to carry a gun, to me, just showed how, and I see this with Democrats all the time, we bend over backwards to try and accommodate people, as opposed to doing what, you know, John Engler would have done. He would have, no way in the world would he have put up with that. He would have surrounded that state capitol with troopers and said, don't even think about coming in here.
Let me say this. clearly, I mean, having covered law enforcement for a long, long time, I'm sure the state troopers that were in the building and stuff were told to stand down, to not try to intimidate, not try to be confrontational, because could have easily turned one crazy guy just start firing, and killing a bunch of cops, and it would have been an
To
ugly
give you a
scene.
sense
Yeah,
of
but they
how-
could have, when those guys got out their car with their AR-15, those troopers could have grabbed them up as soon as they set foot on the ground and surrounded. What are you
But
doing? Let me see that. Da 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 da. There's
Well,
lots of ways they could have handled it.
Well, okay. Let's switch this a little bit
All
because
right,
we're
Nancy,
talking
go ahead.
about armed men in trucks. I think we need to go to Georgia right now.
Oh my God.
We finally have seen the arrest of the two men accused of killing of Ahmaud Arbery down in Brunswick, Georgia. This crime took place in February.
2
I,
months.
I think it's horrible that clearly the hand-wringing that went until now, until there were charges. I mean, here is a black
video-
man who's jogging, unarmed. There's no evidence of any crime, and he is shot and
Well,
murdered.
but here's what really makes me wonder about this, because the video was taken by the guy that was following his two buddies, his two bad old boy buddies down in Georgia. He took the video. There's no way the police did not check his phone for that video before. It's been out there for a long time. And I guarantee you the freaking prosecutor in that county knows that it exists. And it takes an attorney related to the victim's mother, or not related to, but somebody connected to her, to get hold of it, release it publicly for there to be enough outcry to actually arrest these two jackasses.
Oh
And
my
the fact
God.
is, I mean, this is just like Trayvon Martin all over again, a couple of wannabe vigilante cops. And one of the quotes that I've seen, and I've been trying to find it, and I need to verify it, but when the police questioned these guys about why they were following him, they of course said that they thought he might be the guy connected to some robberies that were allegedly taking place in the neighborhood.
Burglaries.
No, the police department says there have not been a string of robberies reported in that neighborhood. And the other thing is, when they said, well, why did you think it was him? His answer was the guy who shot him, or the guy who was driving the truck. The answer, and I got to find this and verify it, just putting that out there. But I read this in one of the articles I saw yesterday where he said, well, it was a black man running in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
That was his rationale,
Well, and
stopping this guy. And I'm telling you, if you want to talk about tyranny, you want to talk about living under oppression, this is a reality in this country that we are not willing to face up to on a mass scale. And the fact that just now, 2 months later, these guys are getting off their asses and charging people with a freaking crime is a disgrace, and
It's
something that we need to
disgusting.
be a lot more vocal about.
it's
Well,
disgusting.
you know what?
And the other,
Go
Go ahead.
Nancy. No,
all right,
Nancy,
well,
do
all
it,
right.
do
Let
it.
me make one quick point. When did it become legal to shoot somebody when you suspect that they might be a burglar? I mean, we have firearms in our house, but the idea that I would ever use, that I could kill somebody over a television or a laptop or a piece of jewelry or anything else that somebody might find in my extremely unattractive house.
The part is what part of this? What makes you think this is your responsibility to police the neighborhood? That's the other
Well,
thing.
that's what these guys think, though. They hang out on these gun sites and they talk. They hear that they're the sheepdog or whatever the hell they were all claiming to be a couple of years ago. There's sheep and there's sheepdogs. And
Hey,
we
the only
keep the
difference
sheep
is they
safe.
had a shotgun instead of a rope. Okay,
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
like Mississippi burning shit, Greg, and I want to give you an opportunity to talk here.
You know what? As the father of two African American boys, men now that around that age, whenever I see something like that, it terrifies me. I mean, first you have to get to 25, right? So I grew up and got to 25 and made it past those years where making it to 25 was a success, right? And now seeing what these guys had done and the lack of response from those who are charged with enforcing the law and protecting all of us is the thing that was really shocking and surprising about it. It's tough. It's tough being a young black man. But is it tough being a white guy? I mean, I'm trying to understand. You guys are white guys. So
It's tough.
tell me
It's tough
something.
being a white guy with Trump.
How do you go from being like a decent regular human being who's responsible for his or herself, and another person and then trying to balance this vigilante stuff too. I don't get
You know
it.
what?
I mean,
You know what?
guys
I
even-
Did
think
you
it's
see the mugshots, Greg?
Yeah,
Did
they
you
look,
see
they
that?
looked
Do
apart,
you
did they
believe
not?
that one is named Cletus and the other one Cletus Jr.? I mean, that's kind of what it looked like to me.
Beavis and Beavis
Yeah,
Jr.
right.
I mean,
No,
I don't want to make
it's
light of this. This is, this is
Yeah.
a
but the
No,
fact that
You know
the
what?
it's a
original,
terrible thing.
It's interesting. I mean, this certainly is not even under the Trump administration. I mean, this isn't the first really grave injustice that we've seen over time, but
No, it's
it
not.
just feels more so that it's okay, that it's sort of the hand wringing just seems so like the FBI should have been the Justice Department should have moved in and at least made it clear we are going to look into this if you don't take care of it. And maybe behind the scenes that was happening, but it just seems like in the Trump era, it seems like, it's a little bit more laissez-faire about what justice is, how it's administered. I mean, we see that with Michael Flynn. I think it's outrageous. I mean, first of all, Michael Flynn was acting as an agent for Turkey while he was helping formulate policy. He lied to Mike Pence. He lied to the FBI. So the FBI, let me tell you that it happens so often over the many years when the FBI is investigating somebody. Part of what they may be discussing in the strategy with the U.S. Attorney's Office is, do we, as part of the deal, say you have to step down from office, you can't run again or whatever. And in this case, Michael Flynn is just a crazy man. Obama pushed him out because he was not stable. Trump got rid of him really, because I think realizing that he was a little crazy. And the fact is, he pleaded guilty, and the judge is not a big fan, I think, of the Trump administration. So it'll be interesting. I'm dying to see the judge's reaction. My guess is the judge is not going to let them drop the case.
Well, that's boy, talk about
I
putting
wondered
yourself
about
in the line of fire.
The plea is in. It's in the judge's hands right now. It's already, there's a guilty plea. I mean,
how do you walk that back?
The prosecution could say we're not going to prosecute, but it's too late for that. It's been prosecuted. He entered a guilty plea, and so now it's up to the judge. The judge can say, look, who else withdrew their plea was John Conyers' wife. She pleaded guilty, and then she said she wanted to withdraw it, and the judge wouldn't let her.
Yep.
And I would not be surprised to see this judge say, you've pleaded guilty. No one forced you to do it. We were in open court. I asked you about it, and it's too late. I'm going to sentence you. You've been a traitor to your country. You've lied to the
that's going to happen.
Well, okay.
Sorry.
This judge is going to. That's my prediction.
Well,
Okay.
we're gonna have to move on to a
let's
couple
see.
other subjects because we don't have a ton of time left. But I definitely want to talk about the flip-flop of the week on the coronavirus task force. We're getting ready to disband the task force, and then the president comes out and said, "I had no idea how popular it was," and so he's going to keep it going indefinitely, whatever the heck that means. But he's like, "No, we're going to transition away from the disease to the economics of the situation." And you look at the numbers and what's happening around the country. I don't think we're ready to just disband this coronavirus task force because, first of all, they have not been instilling a lot of confidence in me to begin with.
Yeah.
Certainly a little bit more than the president and the vice president have been handling it so far. I at least believe Birx and Fauci a little bit more.
Birx less than
But
Fauci.
you can't just pretend it's not happening anymore and just say, well, we're moving on to the next phase. It certainly seems as if he's just trying to go like, la, 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 la. Nobody's dying. I mean, I can't hear you. I'm not listening.
He wants to talk about the economy. He doesn't want to talk about sickness.
Let's talk about the economy. It sucks.
It does suck. I mean, all this, everything with Trump is about him being reelected because and I don't even think he likes being president all that much. I mean, I don't think he likes doing the job. He likes the pomp and circumstance. He likes the big desk. He likes being able to get people on the phone. He likes pressing a red button and having somebody bring him a Diet Coke. He loves the plane.
He doesn't like losing.
He loves the attention, but he doesn't.
I for one, am tired of all this winning.
Yeah, he
Sorry,
doesn't want to lose. And when you talk about the economy, that was all he really had going for him, and it was a substantial asset. I mean, I learned from 2016. I am absolutely not going to make any predictions about what's going to happen in November, but I think that 2018 and the Wisconsin election, the primary or the primary with the judicial race on it, I think those were very important bellwethers. Those were omens, and we'll see about that.
Speaking of
Well,
elections, go ahead, Greg.
Fuzzy says, I don't care what they say. I'm keeping my mask on. These idiots. They want to disband the task force. They're dummies. That's what they are. They're dummies.
And anything ironic about the fact that the president was visiting a mask production facility in Arizona and refused to wear a mask?
Right.
Yeah.
And then he was asked about
a
it.
sign right there that says masks must be worn at all times.
He was asked about it from a reporter who said, Mr. President, you went to a mask factory and you weren't wearing a mask. He goes, oh, I was wearing a mask. He goes, you might not have saw it. He goes, well, we saw you on, and
here's
you
a photograph of you not wearing
mask.
a mask.
The
and he's like,
mask. It's invisible.
Who are you gonna believe? You, me, or your lion eyes?
Right.
This is a mask. We didn't see you wearing a mask, Mr. Trump.
Again,
the president is crazy.
Thread.
What do you think? I think he's crazy. You think the president is crazy? The president is certifiable.
No, the president's evil.
Fucking nuts.
I don't want to give him crazy. I want to go for evil. And I'll tell you why he didn't wear a mask. He doesn't want to first of all, he sees it as like a sign of weakness.
Well, it is because it means he's failed.
This guy wears so much makeup that as soon as he took the thing off, it would be like either
Orange.
there would be
Stain.
like, marks in his cheeks, or the mask itself would be like orange inside.
Well,
Trust
interestingly enough, I heard a new
every
nickname
woman
for
who's
him.
worn a foundation has had this happen to her.
I heard it.
Hey guys, can I
It was Cheeto Van Tweedo.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Ladies and gentlemen, while we're talking about the whole task force thing, can I just say that one of the most underreported things that happened was the federal government creating their racial disparities task force, modeled after what Big Gretch, Governor Whitmer, did in establishing a task force here. And I know that there have been the people in Congress who have been asking for a long time for demographic information as it relates to the infection and the federal government's response to it. And that has seemed to have largely fallen on deaf ears. What I have been seeing, and Nancy and everybody, have you folks been seeing this too? In that different areas, communities of color, whether it's Black folks or Hispanic folks, or even Asian American folks, now being disproportionately impacted by the coronavirus in different parts of the country, even Native American out there in the Southwest. And so if that's true, if that's the case, then what do you think it speaks to? And if nothing else, it seems to me that racial disparities task force should have been like big news.
Well, absolutely. It's exposed the flaws in our healthcare system and the inadequate and unequal access to healthcare in our system.
And also a concept that I was just talking to somebody else about, which is comorbidities, which is, basically if you tend to have certain chronic health conditions, you are more susceptible to other illnesses, including COVID.
And again, those
high
things are
blood pressure, obesity,
all related to
heart
the
disease.
inequities in the system. I
Yeah,
mean,
and that all goes back.
So then that means that for the white people who are dying everywhere, what we're probably seeing is those folks dying in concentrated in poorer communities. Is that
I would think so. I would think so. I think, but one of the things that makes this disease so baffling is, and speaking of like pointless Facebook disease, debates, is they call it novel for a reason. It's not that it's 80,000 words of a gripping story. It's new. Novel means new, and so we're learning all kinds of things about it as we go on. I mean, at the first close look I took to this, I thought, okay, it's going to mostly kill men, and it's mostly going to kill older people. Mm-hmm. But you see these 37-year-old fitness freaks, who are dying. You see young people. You see a handful of children, not a lot, but some. So it's this is not. I mean, this is something we're going to be dealing with for a while and learning about for years and years.
Well, okay, then we're running out of time, so we need to definitely get to schmuck of the week here because, and my schmuck of the week falls along those lines, Nancy. I'm not going to go first on this one, though. I'm going to let Alan go first today on schmuck of the week. Who you got, sir?
You know what? I'm gonna give it to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who has texted me a dozen times in about a week, who keeps asking me to donate to the Trump campaign.
She's still not going to go out with you.
I know.
That's
All right,
funny.
Greg, who do you have?
My choice, my pick, is the schmuck city council lady who is out there in Royal Oak, who
Oh,
went up there and caused that big ruckus, and then came home and then tried to steal and got caught stealing, and she didn't even have on a mask when she was stealing.
She got busted for shoplifting at a Myers in Royal Oak. Yes, that is
right.
correct.
She went
What's her
and
name?
paid, she went to a self-checkout area and paid, I think she had maybe, what was it, $120,
Yeah.
$140, and she only paid for about $45.
Well, it's like that scene in
He's a
Animal
lawyer.
House when they're
He's
in the
a
grocery,
lawyer.
when they're in the Food King, and he's like, "Nothing for me today, thank you." Stuffed in his shirt there. But yes, that's a good one, Greg. I
what was that
thinking about
lady's
that one.
name? What was her name? I don't
Kim
remember.
Gibbs, I
Yeah,
believe.
that's right. Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah.
All right, Nancy, who
Oh,
do you
that
have?
schmuck.
Okay, I'm going to go with a more amorphous concept of schmuckery this week. I am looking out my window of my spare bedroom / office, and I see snowflakes. And so I am awarding schmuckitude to whoever ordered this craptastic weather, and I'm going insane in the house. The weekend was like this kiss from a god because it was so nice and warm. I was out. We were able to get recreating, work in the yard, take a long bike ride.
Don't forget the bagels.
Yeah, the bagels.
You
right.
made homemade bagels. Oh my
I made
God.
homemade bagels last weekend.
You
Yeah.
sent a picture to me. I thought it was like Jewish porn.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
I had a
Nancy,
couple of
you're my
candidates.
neighbor. The next time you make some bagels, put a couple out on the porch in a basket so I can swing by and get them.
Okay, I will.
There you go. You can fight the squirrels for them.
Yeah.
All right, so I had a couple of candidates this week. My first one, and I sort of settled on one of them. My first one was a woman named Judy Mikovits. She apparently is the quote unquote star of this new Plandemic documentary, which is this sort of anti-vaxxer conspiracy theory video suggesting that this is planned, this whole pandemic, and that this is basically part of the deep state. And this lady who is the doctor that they're talking about, this researcher, has been discredited on just about every study she's ever worked on. So she was my first one. But then I thought to myself, well, no, maybe she's just a schmuck who's being exploited by other schmucks. So I went on to my next one. And my Schmuck of the Week official nominee is a woman named Bethany Mandel. She's a conservative author, and she went on Twitter the other day. This would be on May 6th, so just 2 days ago. And she said, quote, "You can call me a grandma killer. I'm not sacrificing my home, food on the table, all of our docs and dentists, every form of pleasure, museums, zoos, and restaurants, all my kids' teachers in order to make other people comfortable. If you want to stay locked down, do. I'm not." And then when people pointed out, well, hey, you do this kind of stuff, you could be infecting your parents. Here was her response. Hey, joke's on y'all. My parents and grandparents are all already dead.
Wow. She's got it all
And
covered.
I think we need to open those cold case files and find out who killed them.
So she is my
really.
Schmuck of the Week, a woman named Bethany Mandel. I'm sorry that
Where
I
is she?
actually put out her name because I don't think she needs the clicks. But yeah, she says,
She
call
is
me
a
grandma
grandma
killer.
killer.
Guess what? That's the kind of thing that sticks.
Right.
You know what? And when they do reopen this economy and all the people that are kind of like, say 60 and above still refuse to leave the house and start spending their money, they're going to find the power of the boomer purse, because man, I'm not
And
I'm
they're
not
also
going to a movie theater for quite some time.
But what they will do, as they always do, is vote. The
Yes.
seniors vote. They
Yes.
always vote. And if you look at what happened in this last election, just this week here in Michigan, we had double the participation rate that we typically have for a May election, about 24% compared to 12% typically for that. And all because of no reason absentee mail-in ballots here in the state of Michigan. People are
that is so
participating.
wonderful.
Hey,
I know.
that's the numbers that I saw
I
from
love
Jocelyn
that.
Benson the other day. So I have faith in people that they will still exercise their constitutional right to vote. I think that's fantastic. And the easier we make it, the more people participate. And that worries the hell out of Donald Trump and the Republicans. And that makes me happy. And I think with that,
happy too. Throw the bums out.
and I think with that, we have to wrap up the week that was on Deadline Detroit. There's so much we didn't even get to. Every single day is just another new thing. And by the time Friday rolls around, stuff that happened Monday and Tuesday is a distant memory.
I know.
But, we're having fun nonetheless. Hey, Greg, we appreciate you being here today. Look forward to some more of your work for Deadline. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for having me. I
And we'll
really
have you back.
appreciate it.
Nancy Derringer, as always. No scarf today, though. Is it getting a little warm out there for that? Although not today,
No, it's not
snowing.
getting. It's actually very chilly. It's just I had a really rough night of not sleeping last night, and I'm just going for solid comfort. So I'm in my fleece. So
I'm Craig Fahle, and I'm going to leave it to Alan Lingle. Thanks, Alan, by the way. And I'm going to leave it to him to take us out.
Stay home safely.
My name's ML Elric. I'm an investigative reporter and a connoisseur of fine yogurts. I know a little bit about Detroit. I know a little bit about deadlines. And I'm asking you to become a member of DeadlineDetroit.com. Like me, I'm not asking you to do anything I wouldn't do. I'm making a monthly donation. My wife is making a monthly donation. I know that seems redundant, but they need the money, and the money goes to a good place. Getting the story out, getting the truth out. Because if we don't support local journalism, there's some people a couple blocks away from here who are going to get away with a whole bunch of stuff that's going to cost you a whole lot more than just a few bucks out of your pocket every month. Go to DeadlineDetroit.com, become a member. You'll see it's really easy at the top of the website. Give early, give often, give generously. Just give a damn. That's the best way I know how.